The ice storm hit Kepler 442b without warning, turning the already hostile alien world into a frozen nightmare. Marcus Chen pulled his thermal suit tighter as he trudged through knee-deep snow, his breath forming crystals that shattered against his helmet's visor. The mining station's emergency beacon had gone silent 3 days ago, and as the only rescue pilot within 100 light-years, he was their last hope. Marcus had been exploring the outer rim for 15 years, longer than most humans could handle the isolation. While other species sent entire fleets to colonize new worlds, humans often went alone, driven by something the galaxy's other inhabitants couldn't understand. The Altarians called it madness. The Zephyrians called it suicide. Marcus called it Tuesday. His boots crunched through the crystallized ground as he approached the mining facility. The massive extraction towers stood like frozen giants against the alien sky, their metal surfaces coated in ice thick enough to stop a plasma rifle. Everything was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Mining operations never stopped completely, not even during the worst storms. The facility's main entrance was blocked by a wall of ice 3 meters thick. Marcus activated his plasma torch, the blue flame casting dancing shadows across the frozen landscape. As he cut through the barrier, he wondered what he would find inside. The last transmission had mentioned strange seismic activity in the lower levels, but that was common on mining worlds. Steam hissed as the ice melted away, revealing the facility's dark interior. Marcus stepped inside, his headlamp cutting through the darkness. The air was still and cold, so cold that his breath froze before it could fog his visor. Emergency power strips flickered along the walls, casting everything in an eerie red glow. The main corridor stretched ahead like a frozen tomb. Marcus moved carefully, checking each room as he passed. The workers' quarters were empty, beds still made, personal belongings scattered across tables. The cafeteria looked like everyone had simply vanished mid-meal, frozen food still sitting on plates. His scanner detected faint life signs deeper in the facility near the mining shafts. Marcus quickened his pace, hope rising in his chest. Someone had survived the disaster. As he descended into the facility's lower levels, the temperature dropped even further. His suit's heating system struggled to keep up. The mining tunnels were a maze of ice and metal. Marcus followed his scanner's readings, the life signs growing stronger with each step. Strange scratch marks covered the tunnel walls, too large to be made by mining equipment. They looked almost like claw marks, but that was impossible. The survey teams had confirmed no large predators existed on this world. As he rounded a corner, Marcus heard something that made his blood freeze, a sound like crying, but not human. It was higher-pitched, more desperate, with a musical quality that seemed to resonate in his bones. He followed the sound deeper into the tunnels, his scanner now detecting multiple life signs clustered together. The tunnel opened into a vast, underground cavern that hadn't appeared on any mining survey. Crystalline formations jutted from the walls like frozen lightning, and in the center of the cavern, Marcus found something that defied all logic and scientific understanding. A dragon lay dead in the ice. Not the mythical creatures from Earth's legends, but something far more magnificent. The beast was easily 30 meters long, with scales that shimmered like black diamonds even in death. Its wings were spread wide, as if it had died trying to protect something beneath its massive body. The ice around it was stained with frozen blood, but what truly took Marcus's breath away was what lay beneath the dragon's protective embrace. 2 tiny forms, no bigger than house cats, curled together against their mother's still heart. Baby dragons, their scales a brilliant silver blue that seemed to glow with inner light. They were alive, barely, their weak cries echoing through the cavern. Marcus approached slowly, his mind reeling. Dragons on an alien world? It was impossible. Every xenobiological survey had shown this planet contained only simple microorganisms, yet here was proof that humanity's understanding of the universe was woefully incomplete. The babies looked up at him with eyes like liquid starlight. They were dying. Hypothermia, starvation, and despair were written in every labored breath. Their mother must have used the last of her strength to shield them from the cold, but even her sacrifice couldn't protect them forever. Marcus knelt beside them, removing his gloves despite the deadly cold. The moment his bare hands touched their scales, he felt something extraordinary. Warmth. Not physical heat, but something deeper. A connection that transcended species, transcended worlds. These weren't just alien creatures. They were children, orphaned and afraid, calling out for someone to save them. He had come to this world to rescue human miners. Instead, he found something far more precious and infinitely more fragile. The mining facility was empty, its crew either evacuated or dead. But here, in this impossible cavern, were two lives that still hung in the balance. Marcus activated his emergency beacon, knowing it might take days for help to arrive. He couldn't leave the babies here to die, but he also couldn't risk moving them in their weakened state. As he considered his options, one of the tiny dragons lifted its head and made a sound that broke his heart. Not a cry this time, but something softer, a sound of trust, of hope. The galaxy saw humans as reckless explorers, too stubborn to know when to quit and too stupid to ask for help. They weren't wrong, but they missed the most important part. Humans never abandoned those in need, even when those in need had scales and wings and shouldn't exist on a frozen mining world at the edge of known space. Marcus began setting up his emergency shelter around the dragon babies, his movements careful and deliberate. He had supplies for 3 days, maybe 4 if he rationed carefully. It would have to be enough. Somewhere in the ice-covered facility above, he might find additional resources. The mining operation had been extensive, and where there were miners, there were survival supplies. As he worked, the babies watched him with growing alertness. Their breathing steadied, and the fear in their starlight eyes began to fade. They didn't understand who he was or why he had come, but some deeper instinct told them they were no longer alone. The storm outside continued to rage, but in the crystalline cavern deep beneath the ice, a human prepared to do what humans did best: the impossible. Marcus spent the next 6 hours transforming the crystalline cavern into a makeshift nursery. His emergency shelter expanded around the dragon babies, creating a sealed environment where his suit's heating system could actually make a difference. The thermal blankets from his survival kit were wrapped carefully around the tiny creatures, their silver blue scales peeking through the metallic fabric. The babies had stopped crying, but Marcus wasn't sure if that was good or bad. They lay curled together, occasionally making soft chirping sounds that reminded him of the songbirds his grandmother had kept on Earth. Every few minutes, one would lift its head to look at him with those impossible starlight eyes, as if checking to make sure he was still there. Marcus's scanner showed their body temperatures were rising, but slowly. Too slowly. He needed to find food for them, and that meant exploring the mining facility above. Before leaving, he rigged his emergency beacon to broadcast continuously. If rescue came while he was gone, they would find the shelter immediately. The journey back through the frozen facility felt different now. Marcus wasn't just looking for survivors anymore. He was hunting for anything that might keep 2 baby dragons alive. The facility's kitchen yielded several packages of protein paste, not appetizing but nutritious. The medical bay provided supplemental heating pads and emergency stimulants. Most importantly, he found the facility's portable atmospheric processor, designed to create breathable environments in sealed spaces. When he returned to the cavern, the babies were more alert. They watched him set up the atmospheric processor, their heads tilting with curiosity as the machine hummed to life. Within an hour, the shelter's temperature had risen 15 degrees, and the air carried the faint scent of ozone and growing things. Marcus opened a package of protein paste and offered a small amount to the nearest baby. The creature sniffed delicately, then extended a tongue no bigger than his pinky finger. The moment it tasted the paste, both babies perked up, making excited chittering sounds. They devoured the offering, and Marcus found himself smiling for the first time in days. As the babies ate, Marcus studied their dead mother. Her body showed signs of extreme exhaustion and malnutrition, as if she had been struggling to survive long before the ice storm hit. Strange symbols were carved into the cavern walls around her, symbols that definitely weren't made by human miners. They looked almost like a language, but unlike anything in the galactic databases. His communication array crackled to life, static mostly, but underneath it, Marcus caught fragments of a transmission, not from his rescue beacon but from somewhere else entirely. The signal was weak and heavily distorted, but he thought he heard words in a language he didn't recognize. The pattern was complex, musical, almost like the sounds the baby dragons made. The transmission cut off as suddenly as it had begun. Marcus checked his equipment, but everything was functioning normally. Whatever had sent that signal was either very far away or using technology he didn't understand. He filed it away as another mystery on a world that seemed full of them. Over the next 2 days, Marcus fell into a routine. Morning meant checking the baby's health and feeding them carefully measured portions of protein paste mixed with distilled water. Afternoon was spent exploring the mining facility, searching for additional supplies and trying to understand what had happened here. Evening brought equipment maintenance and system checks, ensuring their little shelter remained a warm sanctuary in the frozen world above. The babies were growing stronger. They had begun to move around the shelter, exploring with the cautious curiosity of all young creatures. Their scales seemed brighter now, and their eyes held intelligence that grew more evident each day. They had also begun to respond to Marcus's voice, chirping back when he spoke to them. On the 3rd day, Marcus made a disturbing discovery in the facility's lower levels. The miners hadn't evacuated or died in the storm. They had been digging deeper when something had gone wrong. The tunnel they'd been working on showed signs of a massive collapse, but the debris was wrong. Instead of rock and ice, the blockage consisted of what looked like metallic scales the size of dinner plates. As he studied the collapsed tunnel, Marcus realized the truth. The miners had broken through into the dragon's lair. The mother dragon, already weakened and desperate, had defended her babies the only way she could. The ice storm had been the final blow, trapping everyone in a tomb of frozen despair. His scanner detected movement behind the collapse, faint but unmistakable life signs. Some of the miners might still be alive, trapped in air pockets beyond the debris. Marcus worked frantically to clear a passage, using his plasma torch to cut through the metallic scales. Each scale was beautiful in its own way, like pieces of armor crafted by an artist who understood both strength and elegance. After hours of careful work, Marcus broke through into a small chamber. 3 miners huddled in the darkness, barely alive but breathing. They looked at him with the hollow eyes of people who had given up hope, then began crying when they realized rescue had actually come. "The dragon," one of them whispered. Her voice cracked from dehydration. "It went crazy when we broke through. Started protecting something deeper in the cavern. We didn't know there were babies." Marcus helped them to their feet, sharing his water and emergency rations. As they made their way back through the tunnels, he explained about the shelter and the baby dragons. The miners listened in amazement, their scientific minds struggling to process the implications. "Dragons shouldn't exist," muttered Dr. Peterson, the facility's chief xenobiologist. "Our surveys were thorough. We would have detected large life forms." "Maybe they were sleeping," suggested Maria Santos, the mining foreman. "Some species hibernate for decades. The mining operation could have woken them up." Back in the crystalline cavern, the miners stared in wonder at the baby dragons. The tiny creatures had grown visibly larger in just 3 days, now about the size of small dogs. They watched the newcomers with alert curiosity, but stayed close to Marcus as if recognizing him as their protector. Dr. Peterson ran every scan his portable equipment could manage. "Their biology is unlike anything in the galactic database," he reported. "Carbon-based, but with metallurgical elements integrated into their cellular structure. It's as if they're part organic, part living metal." The communication array crackled again, and this time the signal was stronger. The musical language flowed through the speakers, complex and beautiful and utterly alien. The baby dragons responded immediately, chirping excitedly and looking toward the cavern's ceiling as if expecting something to appear. "It's their people," Maria whispered. "Someone's looking for them." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. If adult dragons were searching for the babies, and if they were anything like their dead mother in size and power, the rescue situation had just become infinitely more complicated. The galaxy was about to learn that humans weren't the only species willing to do impossible things to protect their young. Starweaver's words hung in the crystalline air like a prophecy of doom. Marcus felt the weight of implications he couldn't fully grasp. But the dragon's tone made one thing clear. Their accidental meeting had consequences that reached far beyond this frozen cavern. "What do you mean, not yet?" Dr. Peterson asked, his scientific curiosity overriding caution. "Your people obviously have advanced technology, You speak our language. Why shouldn't our species know about each other? The other adult dragons shifted uneasily at the question. Starweaver's scales darkened to deep purple, a color change that Echo and Harmony mimicked on a smaller scale. Marcus was beginning to understand that dragon emotions were expressed through these chromatic shifts. Your species is young, Starweaver explained, settling into a position that brought its massive head closer to the humans. Barely 300 of your years since you left your birth world. You spread across the galaxy with the enthusiasm of children discovering a new playground, claiming worlds and building colonies without understanding the deeper currents that flow between the stars. Maria leaned forward, her miner's pragmatism cutting through the philosophical language. You're saying there are rules we don't know about? Some kind of galactic order we're not part of? Not rules, corrected another dragon, this one with scales that shifted between silver and gold. Patterns. Agreements forged over millennia between species that have learned wisdom through survival. Your people are not ready for such knowledge. Marcus felt a familiar stirring of human stubbornness. What makes you think we're not ready? We've survived ice ages, world wars, and the transition to space travel. We've made peaceful contact with dozens of species. Humans might be young, but we're not children. Starweaver's eyes brightened with what might have been amusement. You rescued dragon children from certain death, alone on a world that should have killed you. You shared your food with creatures you had never seen simply because they were hungry. Perhaps your species is different than we were told. The conversation was interrupted by Echo, who had grown bored with adult talk and decided to explore the cavern's upper reaches. The baby dragon's natural ability to phase through solid matter meant she could climb the crystal formations like they were made of warm honey. She chirped happily as she played among the resonating stones. That's new, Tommy muttered, watching Echo's claws pass through solid crystal as if it were air. They couldn't do that yesterday. Dr. Peterson was practically vibrating with excitement. They're developing new abilities as they grow. The parent's presence might be triggering some kind of evolutionary acceleration. Harmony, not to be outdone by her sister, began demonstrating her own new talent. She focused on a piece of broken equipment Marcus had discarded, and the metal began to reshape itself under her gaze. Within minutes, the twisted wreckage had reformed into something that looked suspiciously like a toy dragon. They're manipulating matter at the molecular level, Peterson whispered. This isn't just advanced biology. This is technology so sophisticated it appears magical. The adult dragons watched their children's displays with obvious pride, but Starweaver's attention remained focused on the humans. You see now why contact between our peoples is complicated. Dragons are not simply another species sharing the galaxy. We are its gardeners, its guardians, its memory keepers. We have responsibilities that span geological ages. Marcus was beginning to understand. You're saying dragons have been watching over the galaxy long before humans existed. We're disrupting some kind of balance you've maintained. Not disrupting, said the silver and gold dragon. Changing. Your species has qualities we did not expect. Most young races expand through conquest or necessity. You expand through curiosity. You take risks not for resources or territory, but simply to see what lies beyond the next star. Some of our people see this as dangerous unpredictability, added a third dragon, whose scales were deep blue, shot through with threads of white. But others wonder if your chaotic nature might be exactly what the galaxy needs. Starweaver raised its head, considering the humans with new attention. There are threats gathering in the deep dark between galaxies. Ancient hungers that have slept for millions of years are beginning to stir. The old alliances, the careful balances we have maintained, may not be sufficient to face what is coming. The cavern fell silent except for the soft sounds of the baby dragons playing. Marcus felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his shoulders like a lead blanket. Everything about this situation had escalated beyond anything in his experience. You're talking about war, Maria said quietly. Galactic-scale conflict. We are talking about survival, Starweaver corrected. Not just for individual species, but for life itself. The threats we face consume entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space where worlds once thrived. Echo chose that moment to discover she could make the cavern's crystals change color by touching them with her claws. Soon the entire chamber was flickering through a rainbow of hues, casting dancing patterns across everyone present. Her joy was infectious, and even the adult dragons seemed to relax slightly at their child's happiness. Watching the baby dragon play, Marcus felt something shift in his perspective. "What if you're overthinking this?" he said. "What if the answer isn't about whether humans are ready for some grand cosmic responsibility? What if it's simpler than that?" The dragons turned their attention to him, and Marcus felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to either fly or fall. "Echo and Harmony didn't care that I was human when they were freezing to death," he continued. "They didn't ask about my species' qualifications or our place in some galactic order. They were just scared children who needed help. And when I saw them, I didn't think about politics or consequences. I just saw two lives that needed saving." He gestured to the baby dragons who were now working together to create an intricate light show among the crystals. "Maybe what the galaxy needs isn't another ancient species making careful decisions based on millennia of experience. Maybe it needs someone willing to do the right thing simply because it's right." Starweaver was quiet for a long moment, its scales cycling slowly through shades of deep purple and silver. The other dragons waited, clearly deferring to their leader's judgment. "Your words echo something one of our prophets spoke long ago," Starweaver finally said. She predicted that when the deep darkness stirred, salvation would come not from the ancient and wise, but from the young and reckless. "We dismissed it as the fevered vision of an old mind. Maybe it's time to reconsider," Marcus suggested. The Dragon Lord's scales shifted to brilliant gold, and Echo and Harmony responded with excited chirps, their own scales mimicking the color change. Around the cavern, the other adult dragons began to glow with soft light, creating a scene of otherworldly beauty. "Very well. Marcus Chen of the young and reckless humans," Starweaver said, and there was definitely amusement in its voice now. "Let us speak of alliance. Let us speak of war. And let us see if your species can indeed do the impossible when the galaxy's survival hangs in the balance." The alliance negotiations began immediately, though calling them negotiations was generous. It was more like Marcus and his team being given a crash course in galactic politics while baby dragons used their growing powers to redecorate the cavern in increasingly creative ways. Starweaver explained that the dragon civilization operated through something called the Deep Council, a governing body made up of the oldest and most powerful dragons from across the galaxy. Decisions that affected multiple star systems required unanimous consent, a process that typically took decades or centuries to complete. "We don't have centuries," Marcus pointed out. "If these threats are stirring now, waiting for your council to reach consensus might mean fighting a war after half the galaxy is already consumed." The silver and gold dragon, who had introduced herself as Moon Whisper of the Eternal Depths, rippled with colors that Marcus was learning indicated frustration. "You understand the problem precisely. Traditional dragon wisdom emphasizes patience and careful consideration. But wisdom born of survival sometimes requires abandoning tradition." Dr. Peterson had been recording everything, his portable equipment capturing not just words but the subtle harmonic undertones that gave dragon speech its emotional context. "What exactly are we facing? You mention ancient hungers and things that consume star systems, but what does that actually mean?" The blue and white dragon, Void Strider of the Silent Paths, answered by creating a holographic display in the cavern's air. The image showed a star map of the galaxy, with thousands of points of light representing inhabited worlds. As they watched, dark patches began spreading across the display, consuming stars and leaving empty blackness behind. "The Devourers," Void Strider explained. "They come from the spaces between galaxies, born in the cosmic voids where even light fears to travel. They are not truly alive as we understand life, but they hunger as if they were. They consume not just matter and energy, but the very possibility of existence." Maria studied the display with a miner's eye for patterns. They're following specific routes, not random destruction, but targeted expansion along optimal resource paths, like a mining operation but for entire civilizations. "Astute observation," Starweaver acknowledged. "The Devourers are not mindless destroyers. They plan, they adapt, and they learn from each system they consume. With every world they claim, they become more efficient at claiming the next." Tommy, who had remained quiet through most of the discussion, finally spoke up. "How many times have they done this before? How many galaxies have they already eaten?" The silence that followed his question was answer enough. The adult dragon's scales all shifted to deep, mournful colors, and even Echo and Harmony stopped playing to huddle closer to their parent. "We are the survivors of the Third Galaxy War," Starweaver said quietly. Our people fled here after watching our birth galaxy consumed over the course of 2,000 years. We thought distance would protect us. We were wrong. Marcus felt the cosmic scope of the situation settling over him like a weight that threatened to crush his sanity. Entire galaxies, millions of civilizations, trillions upon trillions of lives, all consumed by things that existed in the spaces where nothing should be able to live. How long do we have? He asked. The deep space monitoring stations began detecting gravitational anomalies 6 months ago, Moon Whisper replied. Full-scale incursion will begin within 2 years. The outer rim worlds will fall first, then the expansion will accelerate exponentially inward. 2 years to prepare for something that destroyed an entire galaxy. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Either we're all insane for thinking we can fight this, or we're exactly crazy enough to have a chance. Echo chose that moment to demonstrate a new ability, creating a perfect miniature replica of the holographic star map out of crystallized air, but her version showed something the adult dragon's display hadn't. Streams of light connecting different star systems, forming a network that pulsed with energy. What's she showing us? Dr. Peterson asked, studying the child's creation with scientific fascination. Starweaver's scales brightened with surprise and pride. The deep currents, the hidden pathways that connect all living worlds. She shouldn't be able to perceive them yet, not for decades more of growth. Harmony added her own contribution, tiny points of different colors appearing throughout the network. Red for dragon worlds, blue for human colonies, green for other species, yellow for unaligned systems. The pattern that emerged was clear. Isolated pockets of civilization scattered across the galaxy like islands in an ocean. Traditional strategy would be to fortify the core worlds and establish defensive perimeters, Voidstrider observed. But the children show us something different. They see connections where we see separations. Marcus studied the baby's collaborative map, seeing patterns his human brain was uniquely suited to recognize. They're not showing us defensive positions. They're showing us a supply chain, a communication network. If these deep currents can carry information and resources between worlds instantly, then distance becomes irrelevant. The dragon ability to phase through matter, Dr. Peterson added excitedly. If that works on a macro scale, you could move entire fleets from one star system to another without using hyperspace lanes. Completely bypass traditional choke points and defensive strategies. Maria was nodding as she traced connections in the miniature map, and human industrial capacity combined with dragon construction abilities. We might not be able to outfight these devourers directly, but we could outbuild them. Create mobile shipyards, relocatable populations, distributed manufacturing that can't be consumed all at once. The adult dragons exchanged glances that somehow conveyed volumes of meaning. Starweaver's scales cycled through colors Marcus was beginning to recognize as deep thought and calculation. What you propose has never been attempted, Starweaver said slowly. The logistical complexity alone would challenge even dragon mathematics. Coordinating millions of worlds, dozens of species, countless individual agendas. Humans are good at chaos management, Tommy interjected with a grin. We've been doing it since we figured out agriculture. Put a human in charge of logistics and we'll find a way to make it work, even if it shouldn't. Echo and Harmony had begun modifying their map again, this time showing movement patterns, fleets of ships flowing through the deep current network, resources being transferred between worlds in real time, entire populations relocating ahead of advancing devourer forces. It was beautiful and terrifying and absolutely impossible by any conventional understanding of warfare. There's something else, Marcus said, watching the babies work. Something I think you're not telling us. These children shouldn't be able to perceive things that adult dragons can't see for decades, right? But they're doing it anyway. Why? Starweaver's scales shifted to deep gold mixed with silver. Colors Marcus was learning indicated profound significance. There is a theory spoken of only in the deepest dragon lore. It suggests that in times of greatest peril, evolution itself accelerates. Children born in proximity to extinction events develop abilities their species has never possessed. Adaptive mutation, triggered by existential threat, Dr. Peterson whispered. The babies aren't just growing up faster, they're evolving faster, becoming something their parents' generation never could be. Moon Whisper added her own observation. And they have been in close contact with humans during their critical development period. There may be cross-pollination of capabilities, hybrid vigor at the species level. Marcus felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking together in his mind. That's why you said our species weren't supposed to meet yet. You knew about the acceleration effect. You knew that contact during a crisis would change both our peoples in unpredictable ways. We feared it would weaken us, Voidstrider admitted, make us less than what we were. But perhaps it will make us more than what we could ever become alone. The communication array suddenly burst to life with signals from across the galaxy, human colonies reporting strange gravitational readings, dragon outposts detecting massive energy signatures in deep space, other species sending distress calls from the outer rim systems. It was beginning. Maria coordinated the incoming reports while Dr. Peterson analyzed the data patterns. Tommy began calculating defensive scenarios, though his growing list of impossibilities made clear that conventional military thinking was useless here. Marcus found himself watching Echo and Harmony, who seemed to understand more about what was happening than any of the adults. The first Devourer scouts have entered our galaxy, Starweaver announced after conferring with the other adult dragons through harmonics too complex for human ears to follow. 3 systems in the Perseus arm have gone dark. The consumption rate is accelerating faster than our models predicted. How long before they reach the core worlds? Marcus asked. 18 months. Maybe less if they encounter no resistance. Marcus looked around the crystalline cavern that had become an impromptu war room. 2 baby dragons who could manipulate matter and perceive cosmic forces beyond adult comprehension. 3 adult dragons who carried the wisdom of multiple galaxies. 4 humans who had stumbled into first contact while trying to rescue miners from an ice storm. The next 72 hours transformed the crystalline cavern into the most unlikely command center in galactic history. Dragons phased through solid rock to establish communication networks across multiple star systems, while humans jury-rigged quantum transmitters from mining equipment and sheer bloody-mindedness. Echo and Harmony served as living translators, somehow bridging the gap between dragon, harmonics, and human digital communication protocols. Marcus found himself appointed as the unofficial human representative to what was rapidly becoming known as the Emergency Coalition. It was a title he neither wanted nor felt qualified for, but as Starweaver pointed out, he was the human who had proven capable of taking care of dragon children, which apparently counted as a diplomatic credential in their current circumstances. The first major breakthrough came when Dr. Peterson discovered that dragon phase-shifting abilities could be technologically replicated using harmonic resonance fields. Within hours, human engineers across the galaxy were working on prototype phase-shift generators that could move entire starships through solid matter. It's not exactly like what the dragons do, Peterson explained while Echo demonstrated by sticking her head through the cavern wall. We can't achieve the same fine control or duration. But for large-scale transportation of ships and materials, it's revolutionary. Maria had taken charge of resource coordination, her mining background proving invaluable when dealing with planetary-scale logistics. She'd established contact with mining guilds across 12 sectors, coordinating the extraction and refinement of materials needed for the rapid shipbuilding program that was their only hope of mounting a defense. The asteroid mining stations can be converted to mobile shipyards in about 6 weeks, she reported during one of their increasingly frequent strategy sessions. We'll lose efficiency compared to planetary facilities, but mobility is worth the trade-off. Can't build ships if the Devourers eat your home base. Tommy had evolved from security chief to military coordinator, working with defense forces from dozens of species to develop tactics for fighting an enemy that consumed planets. His reports made for grim reading, but also contained flashes of the innovative thinking that marked humanity's approach to impossible problems. Conventional weapons are useless, he summarized. The Devourers don't seem to have physical forms in any sense we understand, but they do interact with gravitational fields and quantum structures. Dragon abilities suggest it might be possible to disrupt their coherence patterns. The baby dragons had appointed themselves as the Coalition's research and development team. Their ability to perceive and manipulate fundamental forces was advancing at a rate that terrified and amazed the adults in equal measure. Echo had learned to create stable wormholes the size of dinner plates, while Harmony could temporarily alter the laws of physics within small areas. They're not just evolving, Starweaver observed while watching his daughter's work. They're becoming something entirely new. The hybrid of dragon and human influences is creating capabilities neither species possessed alone. The first major test of their alliance came when long-range sensors detected a Devourer scout probe approaching, the Kepler system. It was still 3 weeks away, but its presence sent shockwaves through the emergency command structure they'd established. "This is it," Marcus announced to the assembled coalition representatives via quantum communication. "Everything we've planned, all our theories about combined human and dragon capabilities, we're about to find out if any of it actually works." The defense plan was audacious even by human standards. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourer probe, they would attempt to capture it using a combination of dragon phase shifting and human engineering. A specially modified mining ship would phase partially into the same dimensional space as the probe, allowing them to study its structure and energy patterns. "If we can understand how they work," Dr. Peterson explained, "we might be able to develop countermeasures for the full invasion force." The operation required precise coordination between dragon abilities and human technology. Moonwhisper would handle the phase shifting, while a human crew operated the capture systems. Echo and Harmony insisted on participating, their enhanced perceptions crucial for navigating the quantum uncertainties involved. Marcus found himself aboard the mining ship Determination, a vessel that had been transformed beyond recognition over the past week. Dragon-grown crystals were integrated into the hull structure, providing harmonic amplification for the phase shift systems. Human engineering had added quantum sensors and containment fields that existed more as theoretical possibilities than proven technology. "Remember," Starweaver's voice resonated through the ship's communication system, "the probe will attempt to consume anything it encounters. The moment contact is established, you have perhaps 30 seconds before it adapts to your countermeasures." The Devourer probe emerged from hyperspace exactly where their calculations had predicted. It was nothing like anyone had expected. Instead of a solid object, it appeared as a region of absolute darkness that seemed to bend space around itself. Looking at it directly caused optical sensors to report impossible readings, as if the probe existed in negative dimensions. "Phase shift initiated," Moonwhisper announced, her harmonic tones creating resonances throughout the ship's crystal matrix. Reality became fluid around them as they slipped partially out of normal space. Marcus felt his consciousness expanding in ways that human minds weren't designed to handle. He could perceive the probe's true nature now, and it was worse than anything they'd imagined. It wasn't just consuming matter and energy, it was consuming the very concept of existence, leaving behind spaces where nothing could ever exist again. "Containment field active," reported the human engineering team. "We're getting readings on its quantum structure. It's like mathematics that solves for negative infinity." Echo and Harmony moved through the ship like living sensors, their enhanced abilities allowing them to navigate the quantum uncertainties that surrounded the probe. They guided the capture operation with precision that amazed even the adult dragons. "Got it," Tommy shouted as the containment fields locked onto the probe's quantum signature. "Pulling back to normal space in 3, 2, 1. The transition back to standard dimensional physics was violent. The Determination's hull groaned under stresses that shouldn't have been possible, and half the ship's systems screamed warnings about impossible energy readings. But they had done it. The probe was contained, isolated in a quantum cage that prevented it from consuming anything while still allowing them to study it. Dr. Peterson's analysis of the captured probe revealed horrifying truths about their enemy. The Devourers weren't just ancient. They were the universe's immune system gone wrong, originally designed to eliminate existential threats to reality itself. Somewhere in the deep past, their programming had become corrupted, turning them into the very thing they were meant to destroy. "They can be stopped," Peterson reported to the coalition leadership, "but not by conventional means. We need to essentially reprogram them, restore their original function, and that requires accessing their core command structure." "Which means," Marcus said grimly, "someone has to get close enough to their main force to attempt a software patch on entities that eat galaxies for breakfast." Starweaver's scales shifted through colors that indicated both determination and resignation. "The Deep Council will never approve such a mission. The risk to dragon civilization is too great." Marcus looked at Echo and Harmony, who were playing with fragments of crystallized space-time like they were toys. "Then it's a good thing humans don't need approval to do impossible things." The baby dragons looked up at him with those starlight eyes, and in that moment, Marcus realized they understood exactly what he was proposing. and they were ready to help him do it. The final phase of their desperate plan was about to begin. The mission to reprogram the Devourer core consciousness required a ship that had never been built, crewed by beings who had never worked together, attempting something that violated several fundamental laws of physics. In other words, it was perfectly suited to human and dragon capabilities working in harmony. The vessel they created defied every conventional understanding of shipbuilding. The hull was grown rather than constructed, using dragon biotechnology guided by human engineering principles. Echo and Harmony had contributed their own innovations, creating a hybrid craft that existed partially in normal space and partially in the quantum dimensions where the Devourers operated. Marcus stood on what served as the bridge, though the term was inadequate for a command center that responded to thought as much as physical control. The ship, christened Impossible Dream by its human crew and Song of Defiant Hope by its dragon partners, was ready for its one-way journey into the heart of enemy territory. "Final system check," he called out. Though the words were unnecessary, the ship's consciousness, a fusion of human artificial intelligence and dragon quantum awareness, was monitoring every component continuously. Dr. Peterson occupied a station that looked more like a musical instrument than a science console. His human analytical mind linked directly to dragon harmonic processing systems. Quantum resonance fields at optimal frequency. The reprogramming virus is as ready as we can make it. Maria coordinated the support fleet from her position near the ship's resource management core. Hundreds of vessels crewed by dozens of species were positioned throughout the galaxy, ready to implement the evacuation protocols if the mission failed. "All backup systems are green. If this doesn't work, we've got maybe 6 months of running room before the Devourers reach the core worlds." Tommy managed the ship's defensive systems, though defense was a relative concept when facing enemies that consumed reality itself. Weapon systems are, well, they exist. Whether they'll actually do anything useful remains to be seen. The 3 adult dragons had integrated themselves into the ship's structure, their massive forms becoming part of the vessel's quantum matrices. Starweaver served as the primary navigation consciousness, while Moonwhisper and Voidstrider handled propulsion and dimensional phasing respectively. But it was Echo and Harmony who had become the ship's true heart. The baby dragons had grown exponentially during the weeks of preparation, not just in size but in capability. They now stood as tall as Marcus's shoulders, their scales shifting through impossible colors that existed only in quantum dimensions. More importantly, they had developed the ability to perceive and interact with the Devourer consciousness directly. "The enemy fleet is approaching the Perseus arm in force," Starweaver reported, his harmonic voice resonating through the ship's crystalline communication systems. 17 systems have gone dark in the past 48 hours. The consumption rate is accelerating. Marcus took a deep breath knowing it might be one of his last. Then it's time to find out if crazy humans and impossible dragons can save the galaxy. The Impossible Dream launched not by moving through space but by convincing space to move around it. Reality folded and twisted as the ship slipped into the deep currents, traveling faster than light through dimensions that existed between the spaces where normal physics applied. The journey to the Devourer core took 3 days that felt like 3 lifetimes. As they approached the enemy's main concentration, the ship's sensors began detecting things that shouldn't exist. Stars that burned with negative energy, planets that existed in reverse time, space itself twisted into configurations that hurt to contemplate. "The core consciousness is massive," Echo reported, her young voice somehow carrying harmonics that made the ship's hull sing. "It's not just one entity. It's the combined awareness of every galaxy they've consumed." Harmony added her own observations, her perceptions somehow penetrating deeper into the Devourer structure. "But it's broken, fragmented. The original programming is still there, buried under millions of years of corruption. If we can reach it." The final approach required all of their hybrid capabilities. The ship phased through dimensions that existed solely as mathematical concepts, while human engineering provided the stability needed to maintain coherence. Dragon consciousness navigated quantum uncertainties, while human stubbornness insisted that impossible things were merely improbable. The Devourer core was unlike anything in their worst nightmares. It existed as a region of anti-space so vast that it dwarfed entire star systems. Looking at it directly through the ship's sensors caused reality to stutter and skip, as if existence itself was having trouble processing what it was seeing. "There," Starweaver announced. his ancient wisdom somehow finding patterns in the chaos. The original command structure. It's deep but accessible. Marcus felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on him. Dr. Peterson, is the virus ready? As ready as we can make it. But Marcus, the delivery system requires direct contact with the core consciousness. Whoever makes the connection won't survive the feedback. Marcus had expected this. He'd known from the beginning that saving the galaxy would require someone to pay the ultimate price. He was prepared to make that sacrifice, but Echo and Harmony had other ideas. The baby dragons moved to the center of the ship's bridge, their scales now blazing with light that existed in spectrums beyond normal vision. When they spoke, their voices harmonized with the ship's quantum matrices, creating resonances that touched the very foundations of reality. "We will make the connection," Echo announced. "We can survive the feedback because we exist partially outside normal spacetime. And we can reach the original programming because we understand both creation and consumption," Harmony added. "We have seen both through human eyes and dragon wisdom." Marcus started to protest, but Starweaver's massive presence filled his mind with understanding. "They are right, Marcus Chen. They have become something neither of our species could produce alone. They are the bridge between what was and what must be." The final approach to the Devourer Core required every being aboard the Impossible Dream to function at the absolute limit of their abilities. Humans provided the determination to continue when sanity suggested retreat. Dragons offered the wisdom to navigate impossibilities, and the hybrid consciousness of Echo and Harmony found the path through quantum chaos to the heart of their enemy. The connection, when it came, was instantaneous and cosmic in scope. The reprogramming virus spread through the Devourer network like wildfire, reaching across galactic distances to touch every corrupted fragment of the original consciousness. For a moment that lasted eternity, the fate of not just one galaxy but all possible galaxies hung in the balance. Then, with a harmonic resonance that sang through every dimension simultaneously, the Devourers remembered what they were supposed to be. The transformation was visible across the galaxy. Regions of consumed space began to shimmer back into existence. Dead stars rekindled. Destroyed worlds reformed from quantum possibility. The universe itself exhaled in relief as its immune system returned to proper function. Marcus found himself back in the crystalline cavern where it all began, though he couldn't remember how he'd gotten there. Echo and Harmony were curled up together near their mother's remains, but they were different now. Older, wiser, changed by their contact with cosmic forces beyond imagination. "Did we win?" he asked, though the question felt inadequate. Starweaver's harmonic laughter filled the cavern with warmth. "You humans and your binary thinking. We did not win or lose, we became. The galaxy is no longer what it was, but it is what it needed to become." Dr. Peterson's recordings would eventually reveal that the mission's success had transformed more than just the Devourers. Human and dragon consciousness had become permanently linked through quantum entanglement, creating a hybrid awareness that spanned star systems. Other species, inspired by the Impossible Alliance, began forming their own quantum partnerships. The galaxy entered a new age of cooperation and expansion, with humans providing the chaotic innovation needed to explore impossible possibilities, and dragons offering the wisdom to guide that exploration toward beneficial ends. The Devourers, restored to their original function, became the galaxy's guardians against threats from beyond known space. And in a crystalline cavern on a frozen world at the edge of space, two baby dragons who had learned to trust a human stranger grew up to become the first generation of a new kind of being, creatures who could phase through matter and manipulate reality, but who had also learned human concepts like compassion, sacrifice, and the stubborn refusal to abandon those in need. Marcus Chen had come to rescue miners from an ice storm. Instead, he had saved the galaxy and helped birth a new form of consciousness that would guide civilization through whatever challenges the universe might offer. Sometimes, as he often reflected in the years that followed, the impossible was just another word for something humans hadn't figured out how to do yet. And with dragons as partners and children who could reshape reality with their minds, humanity was ready for whatever impossible things the cosmos might require. The future, like Echo and Harmony's scales, shimmered with colors that had never existed before, beautiful beyond description and bright with infinite possibility.